Raina Vale bolted through the rear entrance of La Perle Noire at precisely 6 minutes past 11, her left heel clicking wildly against the marble tiles, until it snapped under her weight. She winced but forced herself upright, tucking the broken heel into a folded napkin stuffed inside her shoe. Servers darted like hummingbirds beneath glittering chandeliers, trays balanced on fingertips, voices rising in a measured chorus of "Yes, chef!" And Table 7's order is up. Raina smoothed the charcoal apron around her waist and inhaled the mingled scents of truffle oil and seared tuna. Despite the pain, she straightened her spine. No one would notice if she moved like any other waitress. By the time Raina reached the hostess stand, a line of well-dressed guests murmured their impatience in clipped tones. She offered her brightest smile to a woman fiddling with a diamond-studded clutch and recited the greeting she'd practiced 1,000 times. "Good afternoon. Welcome to La Perle Noire. Do you have a reservation?" The guest's condescending smirk stung more than the heel. Raina's fingers trembled as she checked the list, then directed the party toward a private alcove, where soft candlelight pooled against burgundy walls. Behind her, the main dining room pulsed with privileged laughter and the soft clink of crystal. Gus, the kitchen manager who'd become a father figure in Raina's life, appeared at the pass and handed her a silver tray. "Late again," he teased, but his eyes flickered with concern. Raina flashed him a tight grin. "Train wreck out front," she murmured, nodding toward the broken heel concealed beneath her skirt. Gus shook his head. "Take 10, Raina. I've got your section under control." She shook her head defiantly. "Too many orders backed up. I'll be fine." He sighed, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, then disappeared back into the heat of the kitchen, leaving Raina to the dinner rush. It was then that Callum Drake swept in, his tailored blazer hugging broad shoulders, cufflinks glinting like miniature suns. He surveyed the dining room with a practiced air of entitlement, lips curving into a confident half-smile. The maitre d' led him past linen-draped tables to the highest perch overlooking the city skyline. Raina approached with a wine list. Her heart pounded like a bass drum as his gaze settled on her. "Bordeaux," he murmured without looking up. His voice was soft, cultured, until a cruel undertone slipped through. "Make sure it's not that cheap house red," he added, eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Raina's uniform. She blinked and offered a smooth nod. "Very good, sir." But as she turned, she heard him mutter to his companion, "Look at those hands. Hardly the delicate type you'd expect in this place." The word peasant hung in the air before disappearing between their laughter. Heat flushed Raina's cheeks. She wanted to snap back, to jab with her own words. Instead, she swallowed the sting, lowered her head, and carried his order with steady grace. In the kitchen, she paused long enough to press her palm against the cold steel counter and draw in a steady breath. Her mother's letter, the one she'd found that morning tucked into an envelope addressed only to "My dearest Raina," burned inside her pocket like a secret. She clenched her fist around it. Today, she promised herself, would be the day she stopped pretending. Raina returned to the dining room with a tray of perfectly decanted Bordeaux, the deep red liquid shimmering beneath a halo of chandelier light. Callum Drake raised an eyebrow, glanced at the glass, then down at Raina's face as if seeing her for the first time. "You," he said, voice smooth as silk. "You're the one who dropped the tray earlier, aren't you?" His tone carried a laugh she could almost hear. She steadied the tray, heart thundering. "I'm sorry, sir. That was Ms. Wilkes. She must have slipped." He leaned forward, lips twitching. "Of course. Must have been." Despite the insult, Raina maintained her composure. She set the wine gently on the table, then offered the pair a crisp menu. "Our special tonight is the saffron risotto with lobster tail," she said. The woman beside Callum tilted her head and smiled without warmth. "Isn't that right, handsome?" she purred. Callum's attention flickered back to Raina. "Make sure she gets the risotto," he said, voice low enough that only Raina could hear. "Actually," she heard him murmur as she walked away, "let's skip the lobster. I don't like anything too. Peasants can't handle it." Raina bit back a retort as she returned to the kitchen. "You okay?" Gus asked, flipping a seared scallop. She nodded, pressing a fingertip to her lips in warning. I'm fine. Just one of his games. Gus sighed. Watch yourself, Raina. Those drakes don't play fair. She let the word sit, then slid a plate of risotto onto her tray and headed back out. The restaurant buzzed around her, an orchestra of polite conversation, silverware, and muted music. Raina navigated between tables, like a dancer weaving ribbons through air. At table 8, an older couple complimented her on her poise. At table 12, 2 bankers tipped her generously. She offered them gracious thanks, but her mind lingered on Callum's mocking words. Every step felt heavy, her broken heel throbbing in time with her heartbeat. When she reached Callum's table again, he regarded her with a predatory smile. Is there something on your mind, Raina? He asked, voice silky. She paused, hand on the chair. Just that I hope you enjoy your dinner, sir. His eyes darkened. I'll enjoy watching you dance to my every whim. Raina forced a calm smile and retreated, resolve hardening in her chest. Someday, she thought, I'll be the one calling the tune. Raina's pager buzzed with an order so elaborate it looked like a novella. Caviar-topped scallops over cauliflower puree, saffron-infused bouillabaisse with a side of truffle-scented polenta. Each dish required delicate timing and precision. This one's on me, Gus said quietly as she stormed past the pass. I'll handle table 4's lobster bisque. Raina nodded, slipping into the kitchen's organized chaos. She felt every eye on her back, every tick of the clock hammering in her ears. As the first plate hit the pass, she spun back onto the floor. Her tray teetered under the weight of porcelain bowls. Careful, called a busboy. Raina gave him a grateful nod, then threaded her way through a forest of tables. The drill of service was a dance she'd learned over thousands of hours. Twirl, step, lean, pivot, until Callum's table loomed large. Finally, he drawled, tapping his fingers on the table. I thought you'd forget me. Raina stood, chest tight, and set down the bowls with a practiced flourish. She spoke the name of each dish, voice steady. Saffron risotto, caviar scallops, bouillabaisse. He snorted. You missed the polenta. Heat flared in her cheeks. I'm sorry, sir. I'll bring it right away. She darted back to the kitchen. Gus met her halfway. He's testing you, he muttered. Raina nodded, refocused. She tucked the polenta into the risotto's frame and carried the trays back. Callum's companion tried to stifle a giggle when Raina neared, but he silenced her with a look. Good, he said, voice low. But next time, don't disappoint me. Raina swallowed hard and offered her most patient smile before retreating to the safety of the kitchen. The restaurant's hush fell at once when Callum stood, wine glass in hand, and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice amplified by the room's sudden silence. I'd like to congratulate our waitress, he pointed at Raina, for serving me one of the worst meals I've ever tasted. A collective gasp rippled through the diners. Raina froze, tray halfway to the pass, every pair of eyes drilling into her. I trust the rest of you will enjoy food befitting your refined tastes, he added with a smug grin before sinking back into his seat. Raina's face burned. She placed the remaining dishes on a side table with trembling hands, then slipped into the kitchen like a wounded animal. What happened? Gus asked, worry etched on his face. She closed her eyes, letting hot tears sting. I don't know. Around them, chefs and servers exchanged worried glances. Gus pinched the bridge of his nose. He's a coward, he said. He knows he's wrong. Raina shook her head. It doesn't matter if he's right or wrong. She wiped her cheeks, took a steadying breath, then marched back out. Her steps echoed defiance more than pain. Callum's friends sifted their silverware as she passed, eyes flicking with sympathy or scorn. She met his gaze for a heartbeat, no apology, no fear. Then she turned and vanished into the kitchen, silent applause rising in her wake. That night, after the last guest had departed and the chandeliers dimmed, Raina found herself alone in the silent dining room. Chairs stacked like soldiers, white linen swirling in the lamplight, the air heavy with remnants of laughter and insult. Gus approached, carrying Raina's ruined heel and a fresh pair of flats. You did good today, he said softly. Better than good. She pressed her palm to the scarred wood of a table and exhaled. "He won today," she whispered, "but I'll win tomorrow." Gus studied her face. "I've known you since you were 12, determined, brilliant, unstoppable. Don't let him dim that." Raina reached into her pocket and produced the sealed envelope from her mother. Gus's eyes widened. "You found it." She nodded. "It's time." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let's go home. Tomorrow, we start planning." Raina closed her eyes, feeling the quiet rage simmer. She slipped into her flats and followed Gus toward the exit, the letter burning with promise in her hand. Raina found herself leaning against the polished marble countertop of La Perle Noir's closed kitchen, the night's chaos replaced by echoing footfalls and the soft hum of the hood vents. Gus stood across from her, arms folded, his usually jovial face creased with concern. "You walked right back out there," he said quietly, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Most would have quit on the spot." Raina turned, her fractured heel throbbing despite the flats. "Quitting isn't an option," she replied, tone steady. "Not when I've come this far." Gus nodded, stepping closer. Long ago, he discovered Raina scrubbing floors after her mother's funeral, tears staining the cold tiles. He'd pulled her into his kitchen, taught her the artistry of sauces, the discipline of timing, the power of persistence. Now, under the harsh glow of fluorescent lights, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Your mother built this chain from the ground up," he reminded her. "She believed in second chances and grit. Don't let one spoiled brat write your story." Raina's gaze drifted to the closed door leading to the dining room, where table settings lay abandoned like victims of an invisible massacre. She exhaled, recalling Callum's public humiliation, his voice dripping with contempt as he'd insulted her competence. "I want more than revenge," she said softly. "I want justice." Gus smiled, a glint of mischief lighting his eyes. "Then let's give it to him." He led her through the staff corridor to a small office tucked behind the storeroom. Inside, dusty file cabinets bore laminated labels. Accounts, staff records, contracts. Gus unlocked one and pulled out a worn leather folder. "Your mother left this here years ago, but I never dared open it." He handed it to Raina, who felt the weight of its contents before peering inside. The folder bulged with faded photographs of a younger Marina Vale standing beside the restaurant's original founders. Tucked between yellowing pages lay a crumpled napkin with hastily scrawled names and percentages, her inheritance, her rightful stake in the empire. Raina's heart pounded as she thumbed through signed documents bearing her mother's elegant signature. "She trusted you with this," Gus said. "She wanted you to decide when you were ready." Trembling, Raina lifted the napkin. "Why now?" she asked. Gus's gaze was firm. "Because the world needs to see who you really are, and because those who stole from her think she's gone forever." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Tomorrow, you start claiming what's yours." Raina folded the documents carefully, a sense of purpose infusing her veins. As dawn approached, she lingered in the quiet office, gazing at Gus's determined profile. He had been her rock, mentor, confidant, unwavering ally. She realized that, unlike Callum's wealth, her mother's legacy and Gus's loyalty were built on honor, not arrogance. Clutching the folder to her chest, Raina vowed to herself and to Gus that she would not fail. Outside, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the kitchen's small window. Raina straightened, squared her shoulders, and slipped the folder into her apron pocket. Gus watched her with pride. "Let's go," he said. "Today, the waitress becomes the heir." That afternoon, between hectic lunch services, Raina found a secluded corner in the manager's office. The sealed envelope from her mother lay on the mahogany desk, ivory paper, crimson wax, her mother's crest embossed in intricate detail. Raina's fingers hovered above it, heart racing. She recalled her mother's final words before the accident. "When you're ready, Raina, open this." But readiness had eluded her until now. With a trembling thumb, Raina broke the wax and unfolded the letter. Marina's handwriting, bold yet graceful, filled the page. "My dearest Raina, if you are reading this, it means you have weathered the storm I could not outrun. The world you see, from crowded kitchens to glittering boardrooms, is only one half of our family's story. I co-founded this restaurant chain to provide warmth and nourishment, but I built an empire beyond nori and souffle. You carry that legacy in your blood and in your mind. Inside these walls, in the locked drawer of the storeroom office, you will find the keys to our true fortune, share certificates, a code to unlock digital holdings, and the names of partners who betrayed us. They think me dead. Let them be surprised. Use everything I have left to reclaim what rightfully belongs to our family. Be patient, be clever, but above all, be courageous. All my love. Mama. Tears blurred the last words. Raina pressed the letter to her chest, absorbing the weight of her mother's plan. She looked up at the ceiling, as though seeing Marina's spirit in the fluorescent glare. I'm ready, she whispered. She smoothed the letter, then retrieved the folder Gus had shown her. Side by side, the physical documents and the letter formed a puzzle begging to be solved. Raina studied the note about digital holdings, recalling a secure server room behind the corporate offices downtown. She could almost taste the thrill of infiltration, of twisting her mother's fate back into her own hands. Raina folded the letter and tucked it into her pocket. Service bell chimed, and she straightened, slipping back into waitress mode. But behind her composed expression, gears of strategy whirred. First, she would confirm the authenticity of the share certificates. Then, she would identify the corporate traders listed by name. Finally, she would orchestrate a reveal so spectacular that Callum Drake and his family would have nowhere to hide. As she delivered a bowl of soup to a corner table, she caught Gus's eye through the kitchen pass. He offered a small thumbs up. Raina returned the gesture, feeling fortified by his confidence. Her mother's final directive would guide her steps, patient, clever, courageous. By the time the lunch rush ebbed, Raina had already drafted an email, in her head, to a discreet lawyer friend who owed Marina a favor. She would arrange a confidential meeting that evening. Then, with the nails of her mother's legacy firmly under her fingers, Raina would step onto the path her mother had laid, transforming humiliation into ascendance. After her shift ended, Raina slipped into a tailored blazer that Gus had pressed for a special meeting. The city's skyline twinkled as she stepped into a nondescript black sedan. One of her mother's old contacts had arranged discreet transport. At the law office, she was greeted by Marceline Coote, a poised attorney with steel-gray hair and sharp spectacles. Marceline ushered Raina into a mahogany-paneled conference room and slid a silver laptop across the polished table. Your mother was always thorough, Marceline said, swiping her finger across the touchpad. The screen displayed a login prompt requesting a 6-word passphrase. Raina's pulse quickened. She recalled the clue in Marina's letter. Speak of home and heart. Fingers poised, Raina entered Lavender Garden Peony's love keepsake, each word significant. The garden where Marina proposed to her father, the peonies Raina cherished, the love that bound their family, and the keepsake locket Marina wore. The screen blinked, then loaded a grid of encrypted files. Marceline watched, impressed. Your mother left you full administrative access to the Vale Enterprises digital vault. Raina's breath caught as she clicked through folders labeled equity shares, offshore holdings, executive agreements. Under equity shares, she saw her mother's signature beside certificates for 35% of La Pearl Noir parent company and 15% of its global subsidiaries. Beside them lay scanned board minutes showing how those shares were forcibly transferred after Marina's accident. Raina's jaw clenched. They stole her inheritance, she murmured. Marceline nodded. Your mother anticipated this. She preserved a digital copy and arranged for you to claim rightful ownership once you proved her identity. Now that you're here, we can draft motions to reinstate your shares and launch lawsuits against the defendants. Raina inhaled, scanning the file titled Partners to Sue, which listed Drake and Sons Holdings, Elena Rowe, and 2 corporate lawyers complicit in the fraud. She felt exhilaration mixed with righteous anger. Start the paperwork, she ordered, voice calm yet commanding. Over the next hour, she and Marceline prepared legal briefs, gathered evidence, and scheduled an emergency board presentation. As Raina stepped back onto the street, dusk settling over the city, she realized the pivot point had arrived. Armed with her mother's code, She possessed irrefutable proof. Callum Drake had belittled her, but behind him lurked the skeletons of his family's treachery. Raina's hidden empire was awakening, and she would unleash it with precision. She slipped off her heels on the way home, contemplating the next steps, notifying key shareholders, galvanizing support among employees, and ensuring the board couldn't ignore her claim. Marina's plan was flawless, a legacy code that transformed humiliation into authority. Raina Vale smiled as she walked into the night, her destiny unfolding with every confident stride. Raina arrived at La Perle Noire before sunrise, the city still shrouded in pre-dawn hush. Inside, she found Gus brewing coffee in the staff lounge, whispering to himself as he skimmed an early news alert on his phone. They're talking about a mysterious shareholder buying 40% of Drake & Sons, he said, eyes bright. Raina leaned against the counter, savoring the aroma of roasted beans. "That's me," she whispered, a thrill coursing through her veins. Gus almost dropped his mug. "You did that." Raina nodded, pulling her phone from her pocket and opening a secure banking app provided by Marceline. The transaction was listed. Vale Enterprises, 40% acquisition of Drake & Sons Holdings. She tapped the screen, watching her mobile balance confirm the transfer of millions in seed funds Marina had stashed under Raina's name. "It's brilliant," Gus breathed. "Callum's going to be blindsided." Raina sipped her coffee, lips curving into a determined smile. "This is just the beginning. Once I hold enough shares, I can call an extraordinary general meeting." Gus set down his mug and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not just a waitress anymore." Service started soon after, and Raina moved through the restaurant with renewed purpose. Her uniform had been swapped for a crisp white shirt and tailored vest, small reminders that she straddled two worlds. When word of the ghost shareholder leak spread among staff, buzz rippled through the kitchen and dining room. Servers exchanged excited glances. Chefs dared each other to peek at her badge. Callum Drake stormed into the restaurant midday, eyes scanning every table as if hunting prey. He froze upon seeing Raina at the hostess stand. "Explain yourself," he hissed, voice low. She inclined her head politely. "Can I get you a menu, Mr. Drake?" His jaw clenched. "Don't play games with me." She held his gaze. "I'm not. You'll read about me in the financial press soon." Fury contorted his features, but he said nothing. He ordered a coffee, slammed down cash, and stalked away. Raina watched him go, pulse steady. As the lunch rush carried on, she felt the tide shifting, employees emboldened, customers whispering rumor, and the Drake family's once unassailable reputation fracturing. That evening, Raina and Gus stayed late, plotting next moves, securing legal injunctions, recruiting board allies, and preparing the grand reveal. The hidden empire of Vale Enterprises was emerging from shadows, every document and digital file confirming Marina's vision. Raina's revenge would be measured but unstoppable, a reclamation of stolen power that no amount of mocking could derail. Raina lounged on a leather sofa in Marceline's conference room, reviewing game plans on her tablet. Callum Drake's public image had already taken hits. Whispers of insider trading, rumors of embezzlement, and speculation about the mysterious Vale, who now controlled his company's future. Raina tapped a folder labeled Callum Background and opened a dossier compiled by Marceline's investigators. Photos of a younger Callum appeared, smiling at charity galas, shaking hands with politicians, hobnobbing with billionaires. Underneath, scanned pages detailed how his father, Percival Drake, had coerced Marina Vale into transferring her shares, threatening legal ruin if she refused. Marina's accident, once deemed a tragic collision, was now suspected to involve corporate sabotage. Raina's breath caught. "He tried to kill her," she whispered. Marceline nodded gravely. The dossier revealed encrypted emails between Percival and Elena, role-plotting to eliminate Marina's influence. It showed wire transfers to offshore accounts tied to shell corporations. Every piece of evidence painted a portrait of greed and betrayal, fuel for Raina's case. She skimmed one page where Callum, still unaware of his mother's true role, bragged about outmaneuvering Marina in a board vote. Raina's fingers trembled as she marked key excerpts. "He's been playing Puppet King," she said. Marceline offered a tissue. "Once we expose this, His fall will be inevitable. Raina exhaled, feeling both vindication and sorrow. Callum wasn't just arrogant. He was complicit in destroying the only family Raina had left. With meticulous care, she drafted a public statement that would accompany the board meeting invitation. A concise summary of Marina Vale's contributions, the fraudulent transfer of shares, and the legal demands for restitution. She included a personal note addressed to Callum. You once mocked me for being nothing. Now you will see that underestimation is the gravest mistake you can make. Raina scheduled the email for delivery at the opening of the stock exchange bell, ensuring maximum impact. As she hit send, her phone buzzed with a social media alert. #WhoIsVale trending. Countless speculators guessing at the identity of the phantom shareholder. Gus peeked in, grinning. They're already talking. Later that night, Raina walked the quiet streets back to her apartment, mind alive with anticipation. Tomorrow, she would stand before the board as the founder's daughter, reclaimed heir, and rightful owner. Callum Drake would finally learn the truth. His empire had been built on betrayal, and Raina Vale was the one to bring it crashing down. Raina sat in the dim glow of her apartment's living room. The letter from her mother spread across the coffee table like a treasure map. Outside, the city lights blurred in the rain, reflecting her own inner turmoil. She traced Marina Vale's elegant handwriting. Be patient, be clever, be courageous. The power to reclaim her mother's legacy rested in her hands, but should she reveal her identity now, or continue the long game? An immediate reveal might rally public sympathy, but her mother had warned against half measures. Patience, Raina reminded herself, would be her greatest weapon. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gus read, "Call me when you decide." Raina dialed him. His voice crackled through the speaker. "What's it going to be? Show your hand now or wait for the board." She repeated her fears. Gus's reply was calm. "If you rush it, they'll bury you in legal red tape. Wait, gather every piece of evidence, build alliances among shareholders, then strike." His unwavering faith steadied her racing heart. She thanked him, feeling the knot of doubt begin to loosen. That afternoon, Raina met Marceline Coote in a sleek midtown cafe. Over steaming lattes, Marceline outlined two scenarios: a direct public confrontation via press release, or a strategic takeover through an emergency general meeting. Raina examined projected shareholder votes, noting which board members were sympathetic to her cause. Marceline leaned in. The longer you wait to appoint, the more inevitable your victory. You'll transform from a whistleblower to the rightful heir. Raina nodded. The path forward crystallized in her mind like stained-glass sunlight. Returning to her duties at La Perle Noire, Raina donned her uniform as if it were armor. "Every good evening, sir, and enjoy your meal," reminded her that she was still playing a part. When murmurs of the mysterious Vale shareholder reached the kitchen, she felt a rush of triumph, but kept her expression neutral. Callum Drake stormed through the dining room, flanked by security. He paused before her station, eyes blazing. "Whatever you're planning, Vale," he hissed, "won't save you." She inclined her head politely. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Drake." His glare burned, but he said nothing more. Later, in the hush of closing time, Gus found her by the empty tables. "You made your choice," he observed. Raina's voice was steady. "I stay hidden until the emergency meeting. Then I reveal everything." Gus smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "Your mother would be proud." Raina exhaled, tension slipping away. The decision was made. Patience, strategy, and timing would be her allies. That night, Raina held Marina's letter against her heart. The stakes were higher than personal vindication. This was about justice for her mother's memory. As she drifted toward sleep, she envisioned the boardroom, eyes on her, jaws dropping as she reclaimed her inheritance. Tomorrow, the game would shift irrevocably in her favor. Under the guise of a catering contract, Raina stepped onto the polished marble floors of the Drake family's winter gala. Crystal chandeliers cast fractal patterns on tuxedos and ball gowns as servers wove between tables. Raina's crisp white attire and composed demeanor blended seamlessly with the staff, but her mind raced. Every whispered conversation, every glint of gossip was potential intel. Tonight, she would venture deeper into Callum's world. A tip from Marceline had led Raina to a private lounge reserved for major shareholders. Slipping through the staff corridor, she observed portraits of Percival Drake lining the walls, reminders of her mother's former partner turned foe. At a velvet rope, she exchanged polite pleasantries with the head waiter, borrowing a tray of hors d'oeuvre to pass among the VIPs. Each time she hovered near Callum's inner circle, her earpiece discreetly recorded snippets of board strategy and personal grudges. "Elena," a voice hissed. Raina turned to see Elena, Rose stepping from the shadows, glass of champagne in hand. The fiancé's icy smile flickered when she spotted Raina's badge. "Serving pies at my own engagement party." Elena's tone dripped condescension. Raina maintained her calm. "Enjoy the canapés," she replied sweetly, lifting the tray. Elena arched an eyebrow. "Don't get too comfortable, waitress." Raina's lips curved into a polite nod. Beneath the glitter, Elena's reaction told Raina more than any document could. The threat she posed was real. Circling the grand ballroom, Raina gleaned morsels of conversation. Concerns about Callum's reckless spending, whispers of an impending vote to oust him as CEO, speculation about who the phantom veil might be. She paused beside two senior executives, debating a financial audit. If the audit uncovers more discrepancies, Callum's tenure is unsalvageable, one murmured. Raina stored every word. This information would seal the board's resolve. As midnight approached, Raina slipped away to the catering pantry, where she reviewed her recordings. The evidence compiled itself into a damning dossier. Personal testimonies, financial rumors, Elena's underhanded barbs, each fragment reinforcing her case. She pressed her palm against the cool steel countertop and exhaled. Disguised as a servant, she had infiltrated enemy territory and emerged with weapons for her final assault. Before exiting, she paused by the ballroom doors, taking in the glittering scene one last time. Callum laughed too loudly at a joke. Elena's smile frozen as she surveyed guests. Raina's heartbeat thrummed with anticipation. Tomorrow, their world would tremble. That morning, as dawn's light filtered through Raina's curtains, her phone buzzed incessantly. #WhoIsVale had exploded across social media, trending nationally. A grainy clip taken from the gala, Callum Drake sneering as he mocked a nameless waitress, had gone viral, accompanied by a text overlay. "She's the phantom shareholder buying your company." Tweets accused him of arrogance. Investors panicked. Raina scrolled through hundreds of notifications, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. At Marceline's office, screens displayed crashing stock graphs and sensational headlines. "Billionaire heir humiliated by mystery investor. Vale strikes back. Drake and Sons in turmoil." Marceline tapped a key. The emergency meeting notice was ready, scheduled for 2 days' time. "This uproar ensures maximum attendance," she said. "No board member can ignore the fury of the public and shareholders." Raina leaned back, savoring the chaos she'd orchestrated. Meanwhile, Callum's world convulsed. He stormed into his family's corporate headquarters, face ashen. Board deputies flanked him, their expressions torn between loyalty and self-preservation. He barked orders at PR staff, demanding damage control, but every effort only fueled speculation. Private text threads leaked to the press. The perfect storm, Raina's viral video, had unleashed public outrage and internal dissent in a single blow. Back at La Perle Noire, Raina moved through her shift with serene focus. Guests murmured, "Did you see that story?" Servers whispered rumors of a waitress uprising. She offered smiles and refills, her heart steady. When Gus pressed a hot cup of tea into her hand, she met his eyes. "Storm's here," she said. He nodded, pride shining in his gaze. "And you're steering it." That evening, Raina watched news anchors dissect the scandal. Callum's fiancée, Elena, appeared in the background of video footage, silencing a reporter's question with an elegant hand gesture. Screen split between Elena's poised smile and Callum's defensive statement. "I deeply regret any offense caused." But the damage was done. Share prices had plummeted. Board members clamored for answers. Alone in her apartment, Raina finally allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Marina's legacy, long hidden, had roared to life in a blaze of public fury. Yet the true reckoning lay ahead. the emergency general meeting, where she would reveal her identity and claim her inheritance. For now, she let the storm rage. In her penthouse suite overlooking the city, Elena Rose surveyed the mayhem with cold calculation. Champagne untouched at her side, she watched live news feeds. Drake and Sons crisis deepens. Shareholder revolt imminent. Mysterious veil emerges. Guests at her engagement party had retreated, leaving empty glasses and hushed whispers. Elena's smile never wavered. Chaos was her canvas. A knock at the door revealed Callum, his tailored suit rumpled, eyes bloodshot. "Elena," he rasped, closing the door behind him. She rose gracefully, extending a hand. "You look exhausted," she purred. He ignored the gesture, pacing. "My father's furious. The board wants to strip me of my title. Our engagement is in jeopardy." Elena crossed to him, placing a cool hand on his chest. "Let them try. I've prepared for every contingency." Callum's anger flared. "What have you done?" Elena's lips curved. "I leaked a rumor linking Vale to your father's old rival, distracted the press, and I quietly acquired small stakes in key subsidiaries. If you fall, I still hold leverage." Callum's jaw clenched. "You played both sides." Elena laughed, a low, thrilling sound. "I'm a partner, Callum. I don't lose." He sank onto the chaise longue, head in hands. Elena approached, crouching beside him. "You underestimated Raina Vale," she whispered, voice soft yet edged with triumph. Callum looked up, desperation in his eyes. "Who is she?" Elena's smile widened. "Someone you never saw coming." She pressed a finger to his lips. "Worry about yourself. I'll handle the board." That night, Elena drafted a discreet memo to the board, an alternative candidate for CEO, one loyal to the Drake legacy but untainted by scandal, herself. She attached carefully curated evidence of Callum's mismanagement and hints of her own shareholdings. By morning, a silent coup would be underway. Later, Elena stood by the panoramic window, the city's lights sparkling beneath her. She sipped champagne, savoring the intoxicating blend of power and revenge. The game had shifted. Callum was on the defensive, and Raina Vale remained unknown. But Elena intended to be the one seated at the table when the final votes were cast. On the morning of the emergency general meeting, an unmarked envelope arrived at La Pearl Noir's manager's desk. Raina retrieved it during a lull, hand steady despite the flutter in her chest. Inside lay a crisp card embossed with gold lettering. "You are cordially invited to present before the board of Drake and Sons Holdings. Date, July 21st, 2025. Time, 10 a.m. Location, Drake Tower, 45th floor, conference room." No signature. No hint of the sender's identity. An invitation to face her adversaries on their home turf. Raina's pulse quickened. This was the moment she and her mother had prepared for, the unveiling of Vale's true heir. Gus appeared beside her, eyes alight. "They want to hear from you," he said softly. Raina nodded, slipping the card into her pocket. "They'll be expecting a whistleblower speech. Instead, they'll get a daughter's claim." She met his gaze, determination shining. Let them see Marina's legacy, not just evidence of fraud. That afternoon, word of the invitation spread among staff and diners alike. Speculation buzzed. Who was R. Vale? A small investor? A board insider? Callum Drake stormed into the restaurant in a dark suit, scanning the crowd. Raina met his eyes from across the room, her expression calm, unreadable. He faltered, confusion flickering across his face. She simply nodded in acknowledgement before turning away. As evening fell, Raina packed her documents, a leather-bound binder containing share certificates, legal briefs, video transcripts, and her mother's sealed letter. She dressed in tailored black, adorned only by a single pearl necklace Marina had worn. In the mirror, she saw not a frightened waitress, but the rightful heir to a vast empire. Under the glittering skyline, Raina and Gus rode the elevator to Drake Tower's 45th floor. The door slid open onto a silent corridor lined with sleek glass doors. Raina took a deep breath, stepping toward the conference room where her destiny awaited. Tonight, her mother's vision would become reality, and Callum Drake would learn that the greatest power lies in knowing went to unveil the truth. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished mahogany table in Drake Tower's 45th floor conference room. Raina Vale stood at the head of the table, her leather binder open before a sea of stunned faces. Board members who had summoned Vale, expecting a whistleblower, were now confronted with the woman herself, Marina's daughter, returned from the dead. A hush fell as she clicked her pen and met the board chair's incredulous gaze. "Gentlemen, and Elena," Raina began, voice steady. "Thank you for convening on such short notice." Her calm belied the quake in her heart. She placed the share certificates on the table. 35% of La Pearl Noir parent holdings, 15% of global subsidiaries, all bearing Marina Vale's signature and authenticated digital codes. "These prove my legal ownership," she said. "I am the rightful majority shareholder." The board murmured. Percival Drake's protege, Callum, leaned forward, jaw clenched. "You can't be serious," he spat. "A waitress can't just—" His words died as cell phones clicked, recording every moment. Elena sat motionless, her perfect composure cracking. "Mr. Drake," Raina intoned, "you have belittled me, stolen from my mother, and plotted to erase her legacy. Today I reclaim both." At the back of the room, Marceline Coote tapped a tablet, displaying share distribution charts and timestamps of the emergency meeting notice. "All votes are valid," she confirmed. "Vale Enterprises, under Raina Vale, holds controlling interest effective immediately." Papers rustled as board members exchanged glances, some shocked, others calculating. The chair swallowed. This is unprecedented." Raina's gaze swept the room. "I stand here not for vengeance alone, but to honor my mother's vision and restore integrity." She closed her binder. "Callum Drake, you are relieved of your duties as CEO. Effective now." A stunned silence followed before applause rippled, tentative at first, then growing louder as junior directors rallied to Raina's side. Outside, the world buzzed as news of the ghost shareholder's identity broke. Raina Vale, founder's daughter, seizes control. Headlines flooded screens. Social media exploded with hashtag RainaVale. Raina allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. She had walked behind enemy lines and emerged as conqueror, not hidden behind a pseudonym, but proud, visible, and unbowed. Word of Raina's takeover spread faster than wildfire through La Pearl Noir's kitchens and dining rooms. Early that morning, servers and chefs gathered at the back entrance, uniforms crisp but expressions fierce. Gus stood at the head of the makeshift meeting, his booming voice carrying over clinking coffee cups and murmured excitement. "She stood up for every one of us," he proclaimed, raising a fist. "Now it's our turn. We march to Drake Tower and show them what loyalty looks like." A ripple of cheers rose as Raina emerged, dressed in her classic uniform. She nodded to Gus, heart swelling. "They saw me serve them dinner. Now we serve them justice." Trays were repurposed as banners. "Vale for the people. No more peasant hands." Outside the restaurant, the staff spilled onto the sidewalk, chanting slogans that echoed off glass facades. Passers-by paused, snapping photos. News crews arrived to capture the rare scene of fine dining staff, leading a protest march in tuxedos and aprons. At Drake Tower's revolving doors, security hesitated as hundreds of employees approached. But when Gus and Raina stepped forward, flanked by chanting staff, the board relented. Callum Drake, watching from an upper floor, saw his once invisible waitress, now at the vanguard of a loyal army. He swallowed, realizing that humility and respect had been more elusive to him than power. Inside, the board convened an emergency session. Marceline presented polling data. 80% of employees supported Raina's leadership. Customer surveys showed 70% would boycott if Callum remained. Elena's proposal to install herself as CEO fell flat. The staff revolt had become a public relations force no corporate lawyer could counter. By midday, Drake & Sons Holdings official channels released a statement. In light of overwhelming support for Ms. Vale's leadership and shareholder mandate, Mr. Callum Drake stands relieved of all executive duties. Ms. Raina Vale assumes the role of interim CEO. Outside, the staff erupted in jubilation, embracing as tears and laughter mingled. Raina surveyed the jubilant crowd, humbled by their solidarity. "We begin together," she announced through a borrowed megaphone. "Not as servant and master, but as a team united by respect. Let's build something better, for my mother's dream and for all of you." Applause thundered, proof that genuine leadership arises not from titles, but from lifting those who serve. Later that afternoon, the tension returned in the form of an impeccably manicured hand knocking on Raina's office door. Elena Rose swept in, blazer buttoned, ice in her gaze. She closed the door with a soft click. "Congratulations, Miss Vale," she began, voice low. "I admire ambition." Raina gestured to a leather guest chair. "Please sit." Elena declined, pacing the glossy floor. "You've disrupted everything," Elena continued. "My fiancé is a wreck, my reputation in ruins." She paused, staring at Raina. "I could expose certain inconvenient truths about your late mother's offshore holdings, truths that Marceline conveniently omitted." Raina's expression remained neutral. "I'm aware of your involvement with Percival. We have ledgers, emails, everything." Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "But you have something I want." Leaning close, Elena whispered, "Transfer 10% of your shares to me, and I'll ensure our partnership. I'll make you look like a benevolent savior, not a corporate usurper. Refuse, and I leak evidence of questionable shell corporations tied to Vale Enterprises." She straightened. "Your move." With a toss of her hair, she swept from the room, leaving the ultimatum lingering. Raina's pulse thundered. She closed her eyes, recalling Marina's creed. Be clever, be courageous, be patient. She dialed Gus. "He's bluffing," he said. "Elena's threats are desperation, empty bluster." Still, they couldn't ignore the risk. Raina convened Marceline and her legal team. They uncovered Elena's shell companies and traced their origins. Her leverage dissolved under scrutiny. That evening, Raina summoned Elena to a press conference. Cameras whirred as Elena swaggered onto the podium. Raina followed, calm in white shirt and tailored vest. Microphones caught every word. "Ms. Rowe," Raina began, "your accusations are noted, but your tactics reveal your true character." She handed a USB drive to a journalist, documents exposing Elena's own fraud and complicity in Callum's crimes. The room erupted in shock. Elena's smile faltered as reporters demanded comment on her newly unveiled misconduct. She fled the stage, dignity in tatters. Raina turned to the cameras. "No ultimatum can stand against truth. Let this be a lesson in integrity." The public applauded, another triumph for the rightful heir. A week later, Drake & Sons Holdings conference room buzzed with tension as forensic auditors unpacked laptops on a long glass table. Raina sat at the head, flanked by Marceline and Gus. Board members filed in, their faces pale. The head auditor, Ms. Chun, cleared her throat. "Our audit has revealed widespread misappropriation of funds, orchestrated by Drake and Ancillaries LLP." Chun clicked to a slide charting wire transfers to offshore accounts, shell corporations, and personal expenses billed to the company. Luxury yachts, art acquisitions, secretive consultancy fees. Whispers rippled through the room. Callum sat rigid, eyes darting as implicating documents scrolled on the screen. Chun continued, detailing Elena's covert transactions used to finance her engagement ring and lifestyle consulting fees. Raina observed every reaction. "You gave me evidence," she said softly to Chun, who nodded. Then she addressed the board. "This audit confirms what I presented 2 weeks ago. The fraudulent activity not only deprived my mother of her rightful inheritance, it jeopardized the company's stability and employees' livelihoods." The board chair, who had once chaired a committee to oust Marina's shares, swallowed. "Ms. Vale," he began, voice trembling. "Based on these findings, we propose a full restructuring, elimination of fraudulent executives, restitution of misappropriated funds, and oversight measures to prevent future abuse." He looked to the room. Unanimous nods met his gaze. Callum interjected weakly. "I had no knowledge," Raina cut him off. "Ignorance is not exoneration when privilege blinds you to crime. We will cooperate with regulators and law enforcement." A legal counsel confirmed that criminal referrals would follow. Board members shifted in chairs, relief, regret, resolve flickering across their faces. As the meeting adjourned, employees gathered outside, cheering. The audit had validated their revolt and Raina's leadership. Marceline smiled at Raina. "Justice," she said. Raina caught Gus's eye. "For Mama," he whispered. Raina nodded, determination tempered by sorrow. The company's future had been secured, but the final chapter, revealing her mother's greatest secret, awaited. Late that night, the restaurant was silent save for the hum of the walk-in cooler. Raina found Gus in the back hallway, leaning against a stack of inventory crates. His face, usually so steady, was solemn. "What is it?" Raina asked, voice gentle. Gus took a breath. "Before we celebrate tomorrow, there's something I need to tell you. Something your mother asked me to reveal at the right time." Raina's heart thumped. "What happened back then? After the accident?" Gus nodded, eyes distant. "Marina staged her own death. The accident was orchestrated to protect her from Percival's threats. I helped her disappear, changed her identity, moved her to a safe house overseas. She lived under an alias until she trusted you to carry her legacy." Tears pricked Raina's eyes. "You lied to me." Gus placed a hand on her shoulder. "I lied to protect you. You were only 16, vulnerable. We feared Percival would come for you next." She swallowed. "And you've been keeping her memory alive here." He gestured around the echoing corridor. Every recipe tweak, every new location, those were her designs, too. Raina pressed her fingers to her temples. "My mother, she sacrificed herself, so I could be safe." Gus's voice cracked. "Yes, but she never stopped watching, planning. She wanted you to choose your moment. You've honored her plans beautifully." Silence settled as Raina absorbed the revelation. The true empire behind Vale Enterprises, the living founder guiding from the shadows. Gus continued. "She wanted you to know that even in the darkest times, courage and integrity endure. She believed in you more than anyone." Raina's tears fell freely. "I wish I could have said goodbye." Gus enveloped her in a hug. "She's never truly gone, Raina. She lives in every choice you make." They stood together in the dim hallway, two guardians of Marina's legacy. Dawn's first light filtered in as Raina drew strength from the truth. Tomorrow, she would thank her mother publicly, revealing not only her inheritance, but the spirit that shaped it. And in that moment, Raina Vale would complete the circle of justice, love, and triumph her mother began. Raina stepped through the grand entrance of Vale Bistro, the modest eatery where her mother, Marina, had first dreamt of an empire, now reborn under her stewardship. Whitewashed brick walls bore new photographs, Marina in her chef's whites, Raina as a child tasting spoonfuls of bechamel sauce. A hush fell over the assembled staff and longtime patrons as she ascended the small stage, built beside the open kitchen. "Welcome home," Raina began, voice rich with emotion. She paused to let the applause settle into respectful silence. "This place is where my mother's vision was born, to nourish bodies and souls. Today, I return not as a waitress or shareholder, but as her daughter, heir to her passion." She swept her hand toward the photographs. "Every recipe, every smile, every late-night conversation we had in this kitchen lives on in each of you." Behind her, Gus rang a bell, summoning servers who presented sample dishes. Marina's signature seafood stew, reimagined with saffron and coconut milk. The aroma drifted through the room, drawing murmurs of delight. Raina moved among the trays, serving each guest herself, an homage to her past and a testament to her future. "This is for you, Mama," she whispered, pressing a spoon of stew into Gus's hand. After the tasting, Raina unveiled a bronze plaque bearing Marina's crest and the inscription, "In memory of Marina Vale, may her spirit guide us always." Tears glistened on cheeks as her mother's old friends embraced Raina, their voices cracking with pride. Outside, news crews recorded the emotional reunion. Social media lit up. Hashtag Founder's Daughter Returns. Hashtag Vale Legacy Lives. By evening's end, long lines of hungry diners curled down the block, drawn not only by the food but by the story of resilience and reclamation. Raina stood at the door, greeting each newcomer with a radiant smile. In that moment, she felt her mother's presence beside her, guiding, encouraging, and affirming that the true power of Vale Enterprises lay in the hearts it nourished. News of the audit's findings and Raina's takeover reached legal authorities within hours. Under mounting evidence, Callum Drake was summoned to criminal hearings for corporate fraud and conspiracy. He arrived at the courthouse in a dark suit, hair unkempt, eyes hollow, flanked by a stipend of high-paid lawyers who offered no comfort. Inside the packed courtroom, prosecutors laid out the case. Call records demonstrating Callum's complicity in falsifying financial statements, email chains proving his knowledge of offshore shell companies, and witness testimonies from former executives. Each revelation struck like thunder, echoing through the silent gallery of media and onlookers. Callum sat motionless, face pale as the scales of justice tipped against him. Raina watched from the front row, flanked by Gus and Marceline. Despite the gravity of the moment, she remained composed, a pillar of quiet strength. When the judge called for sentencing, Callum rose, voice brittle as he delivered his apology. "I let pride blind me. I betrayed my family, my employees, and the memory of those who built this company." But remorse rang hollow under the weight of evidence. The judge's gavel fell. "Mr. Drake, for your crimes against corporate integrity and the breach of fiduciary duty, you are hereby sentenced to 3 years probation, restitution of misappropriated funds, and permanent ban from any executive role in this or any affiliated company." The courtroom erupted in whispered astonishment. Callum's shoulders slumped as bailiffs guided him away. Outside, reporters swarmed Raina. She spoke softly into the cameras. "Justice has been served. May this remind us all that respect and responsibility are the true foundations of leadership." The headline blared next morning. Callum Drake stripped, sentenced, shamed. As the sun rose over the city, Raina felt the final vestiges of her mother's oversight fade, replaced by her own unwavering commitment to honor, transparency, and the prosperous future of Vale Enterprises. A week after the trial, Vale Enterprises hosted a gala at the city's Grand Convention Center. Beneath soaring glass ceilings and draped velvet banners bearing Marina's emblem, Raina prepared to unveil her vision, the Vale Foundation, a charitable arm dedicated to culinary education, women's empowerment, and community development. Hundreds of investors, media figures, and community leaders filled the hall. Raina took the stage in a simple black sheath, her confidence radiating under the crystal chandeliers. She paused, gazing at the sea of expectant faces. "My mother built Vale on the principles of nourishment and dignity," Raina began. "Today, we honor her legacy by extending it beyond boards and balance sheets, to kitchens in disadvantaged neighborhoods, to scholarships for aspiring chefs, and to programs that uplift women in business." A video montage played, children learning to bake bread in a community center, single mothers in culinary apprenticeships, scholarship recipients graduating with honors. Applause swelled as Raina outlined the foundation's first initiatives: a $2 million grant to establish vocational kitchens, partnerships with local nonprofits, and an annual awards gala recognizing leaders who embody Vale's values. Callum Drake, present as a spectator, watched from the side with mixed emotion. Elena Rowe, also in attendance, lingered uncertainly in the back. Yet no bitterness surfaced. Instead, a respectful nod to Raina's words. When she concluded, "In every bowl we serve, in every opportunity we create, Marina's spirit lives on," the hall rose in a standing ovation that felt like a blessing. As the gala transitioned to a celebratory reception, guests mingled around displays of Vale's new brand, dishes crafted by alumni of the Foundation's first training program. Raina welcomed each attendee, exchanging handshakes and heartfelt thanks. Under the radiant glow of the chandeliers and her mother's enduring vision, Vale Enterprises and the world it touched stood poised for a brighter, more compassionate future. Despite Raina's triumphs, Elena Rowe had secretly pursued her own path to power, using corporate espionage and illicit share acquisitions to undermine the Vale Foundation. But when internal investigators uncovered her involvement in the Drake family's original fraud and additional schemes to misappropriate foundation funds, Elena's empire of deceit crumbled. Late one evening, police arrived at Elena's downtown loft, executing search warrants. Flashing cameras captured her stunned expression as officers escorted her out in handcuffs. She wore couture and diamonds, but none could mask the humiliation etched on her face. Reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Rowe, do you deny the charges?" Elena offered only a trembling, "No comment," before being led into a patrol car. Raina learned of the arrest mid-morning, seated in her office, surrounded by charts of the Foundation's growth metrics. Gus entered silently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's finally over," he said softly. Raina nodded, eyes reflecting both relief and sadness. She was once a partner, but greed blinded her. News outlets screeched headlines. Elena Rowe arrested for philanthropic fraud. Vail Foundation shelves gala plans in wake of scandal. Analysts predicted that Elena would face charges of embezzlement, conspiracy, and breach of trust. Within days, she was formally indicted. Her reputation, once the envy of corporate society, lay in ruins. Raina issued a brief statement. "The Vail Foundation welcomes accountability. We continue our mission to serve communities with integrity. Let today remind us all that no ambition justifies betrayal." Outside her window, the city moved on, undaunted by scandal, inspired instead by a leader who transformed adversity into compassion. Months later, Raina returned to the very first Vail Bistro, now renamed Marina's Table. Under soft evening lights, she hosted a private dinner for the original staff and loyal patrons who had stood by her through every upheaval. At the head of the table sat Callum Drake, no longer an adversary but a humbled guest, nervously clasping a wine glass. Raina approached with a crystal carafe of mineral water. She poured Callum a small glass, the water bubbling over the rim. "For old time's sake," she said with a gentle smile. Callum nodded, words catching in his throat. He sipped and exhaled, tasting not only water, but the grace extended by a deserving adversary. Around them, servers moved with deliberate care, plating seasonal dishes that blended Marina's classic flavors with Raina's modern twists. Laughter floated above conversations about new community kitchens and scholarships awarded. Gus raised his glass. "To Marina Vail, may her spirit guide us always," and to Raina, who transformed humiliation into hope. Guests echoed the toast. As the candles burned low, Raina stepped outside onto the cobblestone patio. She looked up at the stars, recalling her mother's final letter. "Be courageous." A contented hush settled over her. Inside, the guests savored the evening, united by shared history and nourished by a brighter future. With her final tip, Raina had reclaimed not only her inheritance, but the true essence of her mother's dream, that every table, every life, every story could be transformed by kindness, resilience, and an unwavering belief in second chances. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.